All right, let's continue on with section 8.2. It's going to be very similar to the first part, but we're just going to add on graphing. So, worked with a lot of you that had questions on this. And listen, I get it. This is a tough section to do virtually. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys in person on Monday to be able to answer up any other questions. And the confusing part has been like, where do I get the numbers for X? And it does not matter what you plug in for X. We were picking -1, 0, 1, and 2 because those are easy numbers to work with. But I can choose anything I want. All right. And yesterday it was saying find four ordered pairs that are solutions. Um, Today we're going to graph. And really, you only need 2 points in order to be able to graph a straight line, right? You can connect it and just continue it on in either direction. And then you could find 10 points, but all of them will be on that same line. So we started and we were plugging in values for X. Okay, but it doesn't matter. I could say, all right, well, I want to find out what X is when Y is 2. Okay, so I'm defining Y right now. You can pick either one. I could say, okay, Y is 2. So when I plug it in, I'm saying 2 equals what plus 1. Okay, so I said Y was 2. So I plugged it in for Y. Now I'm solving for X. So we should know that 1 plus 1 is 2. And so my ordered pair would be X is 1 and Y is 2. So if I graph that, X is 1 and Y is 2, my point is right there, right? If I back up for a minute, all right, I could have said, all right, well, let's figure out when X is 1. So I'd plug that in here, right? It was Y equals. So make sure whatever one you pick to plug in, you plug it in for that variable, right? And you'll end up with the same result either way. Now, let's find a second point, right? Because in order to graph, right, if I only have 1 point, I could have a line here, here, right? There's an infinite number of lines I could draw. But as soon as I get that second point, I'm stuck to having to connect them wherever that second point may be. So I need a second value for X. Out of the blue, no logic here. I'm going to pick 5 just to show you you can pick any number you want. So Y equals X plus 1. So instead of X, I'm saying that, let's see what it is when it's 5. So 5 plus 1, Y would equal 6. So my point would be X is 5, Y is 6, right? Because I took this value that I chose randomly and plugged it in. So when X is 5, Y is 6. So to graph this, right, and it's going to be hard for me on here because I don't have a ruler that I can use. I'm going to try to connect them with, that was really bad. All right, let me undo that. Let me try that one more time. Try to get a straight line here. Nope. All right, so I can't do it with a straight line. But you can see, like, if I pick another point, let's say that I picked 2. Okay, so I say Y is equal to 2 plus 1. All right, we get Y equals 3. So the point 2, 3 should be on my line, right? Now, my point would be right here, right? And you can see that I wasn't straight with my line, right? I could get another point in there, Y equals 3 plus 1, right? Which would be 4. So 3, 4, right? And you can see my line's bent, but all of these points should fall on that line had I drawn it straight. Okay, but so for graphing, you only need 2 points, right? And we picked these two to start. You could pick anything, right? You could have picked 2 and 3 and gotten that same exact line. All right, let's look at another one here, right? So again, it doesn't matter if we pick an X value or a Y value. Typically, you pick an X value to plug in because that's your input. And then when you put that in, Y would be your output. All right, so let's do an easy one. Let's plug in 0. Okay, so I can say that 4x is 0 plus 4y equals 24, right? Well, 4 times 0 is 0, right? So that's like that cancels that term out. Plus, so positive 4y equals 24. So if I divide both sides by 4, I get y equals 6. So I have the point 0, 6. So x is 0, y is 6. Okay. Let's pick another easy point. Okay, I mean, you could pick anything. You could pick 5, right? But if you pick too big of numbers, you might end up where you're not on the visual graph. So let's try x equal to 1. So I would do 4 times 1 plus 4y equals 24. Right, so 4 times 1 is 4 plus 4y equals 24. So now I got to solve this for y. So I'm going to go minus 4 to both sides. So that would be 0. I get a positive 4y equals 20. So when I plugged in 1, it's going to equal 5. So 1, 5. So when x is 1, y is 5. Right, and we should be able to see the pattern, right? We were doing this yesterday, right? If I plugged in 2, this should be 4, right? Because if it'll keep the same pattern as you go through, right? And I could double check that, right? I could take that out. Let's change this. Let's try when we plug in a 2, right? 4 times 2 is 8 plus 4y equals 24. So we'll go subtract 8 from both sides. We get 4y equals 16, right? Divide by 4, and we get 4. So that's another point, right? 2, 4. So I can see I only needed 2, but I got 3 on there. And then if I just connect those with a straight line, ooh, that was much better, right? Straight line through the points, meaning that as long as I graph this correctly, if I plugged in 3, I should get y equals 3, right? And we can check that out. Right, let's try a 3. So 4 times 3 is 12, right? So if I subtract 12 from both sides, we get 4y equals 12. Divide by 4, and we get 3, right? And that point was on this line, right? Looks like 4, 2 should be on there. 5, 1 should be on there, right? And I got a little bit off track there, right? I'm veering a little bit, but 6, 0 should be on there. So all those points would be on that line. But I get them even though I only found 2 points originally, and as long as I draw a straight line, it should be good. All right, working with fractions, right? And this is fine, right? We might end up with decimals. That's okay. But again, let's pick a value for x that's easy, right? The easiest one to plug in is 0, right? So we can say y equals 1/2 times 0 plus 2. Well, 0 times anything is 0, so this term is canceled, and we're left with y equals 2. So when x is 0, y is 2. So 0, 2. Now, we talked about picking an easy one, right, a multiple here, but let's just say we didn't. Let's just say we're in the habit, we picked 1. So we can say y equals 1/2, so it's 1 plus 2. So y equals 1/2 times 1 is 1/2 plus 2. So here we get 2.5 for y. So we have 1, 2.5. So when I graph, right, x is 1, y is 2.5. So that would be just in the middle right there. So if I connect these with a straight line, trying, right, that gives me the line for that. Okay, now let me erase this here. You see that I have note the scale on the graph. Okay, because if we scroll up, the scale here is each line is worth 1. Sometimes you'll see it, right? And on the worksheet today you will. It's in increments of 2. Right? And this would be 2, 4, 6, 8, and so on. So my first point, 0, 2, would actually be right here. And that's because the scale is 2. So x is 0, y is 2 would be right there. Now let's plug in another point. Let's go 2. Right? And we talked about um, in the first half of 8.2, we said, well, if we have a fraction, if I don't want to deal with a fraction, I have to use a multiple of the denominator, right? And 2 is a multiple of the denominator, so that won't give me a fraction as my answer. So 1/2 times 2 plus 1. All right, so half of 2 is 1 plus 1, so y would equal, 1 plus 2 would equal 3. So the point 2, 3 should be on my graph. Now I got to be careful, right? 2 and then 3 would be right here. So just so we understand what I'm saying by the multiple. So I wouldn't want to plug in 3 next because that would get me a fraction again. So I'm going to plug in 4. Y equals 1/2 times 4 plus 1. So half of 4 is, no, I did that right. Oh, sorry, this is a 2. I keep writing that wrong. That's a 2. So half of 4 is 2 plus 2 equals 4. So if I were to graph that, 4 for x, 4 for y. Right? Try to do the straight line here and connect. All right, so we're going overkill with doing all of these points. Really, you only need 2 points in order to graph a line. All right, y equals 3, right? And this one we talked about with those that had questions from yesterday. This was one that came up. Right, I'm gonna just pick these 4 points. Again, I know we only need 2, but we're gonna do overkill. Y equals 3. So you can see that there's no x value in there, right? And that's the same as saying there's no x, there's a positive 3, right? And they're saying 0 times anything is just going to be 0. So that's why that's not even in the equation, because it doesn't have any effect on it, because no matter what you plug in, it's telling you that y equals 3. Y equals 3, y equals 3. So no matter what, y equals 3. So 0, 3, 1, 3, right? Doesn't matter what I plug in for x. I'm just going to have this horizontal line right here at 3. So your practice today is to finish the worksheet from Tuesday. Okay, both front and back. You did finding 4 points, numbers 1 to 6 on the front. Okay, I want you to work on the back side of that sheet. All right, and for example, let's say that I have this y equals 2x plus 3, and this is what the back side of the sheet looks like. So it'll say like 1, and then it'll say y is 9, and then it might say y is 3. Okay, so for that, right, it gives you the variable. It doesn't matter which one it tells you. So it tells me here x is 1. So I'm going to plug in y equals 2 times 1 plus 3. So I'm going to plug in 1 for the x value. So y equals, that would be 2 plus 3. So when x is 1, y is 5. Now for this one, it doesn't tell me an x value. It tells me the y. So I'm going to plug that in for y. So I would say 9 equals 2x plus 3. Now I have to solve it for x, right? So I would go get rid of 3. So 9 minus 3 is 6. Cancels. We get 2x equals 6. Divide both sides by 2. And so when y was 9, x equals 3. can back this up. And say, okay, now instead of 9, they gave me a y value of 3. So I'm going to plug that in. And that was 3. So y was 3. Now I have 2x plus 3. So I got to solve it again. So minus 3 minus 3. We get 0 over here. This cancels. We get 2x. Divide both sides by 2. And we get 0. So when y was 3, we solved and got x is 0. So that's how you do the backside of that worksheet. All right. If you have questions, you can come down and see me if you're in person. If you're virtual, you can shoot me an email. Hope you have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.